Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's so nice to see you all this morning. And I want to welcome all those who have been joining us for the past 3 or 4 weeks. We want to say how much we appreciate you. I want to say how much I appreciate you joining me here today. All right, we want to continue our series this morning. And today we want to talk about, in our Leading with Light, soul reset, how we can have our toolkit as leaders that holds, that heals, and that have us focusing on our soul health. So I say again, welcome to another Leading with Light. And as we start, I want us to look at the mesh today. And so I always present, by popular demand, information that persons would want. We want to welcome those on YouTube, as well as those who are watching via our LinkedIn channel. So I always look at my audience that is coming in from that angle because they are also important. Thank you for joining, Franklin. Thank you for joining. And so, thank you, Brock. We're having some persons this morning. Thank you, Paul. It's good to have you. Thank you so much. All right. So let's pop into our presentation as we move this morning. So we are talking about healing the mind, the body, and the soul. And so I am saying, good afternoon, Merjana, which is good morning for me. Thank you for taking the time to join. Today we are talking about purpose doesn't just need passion. It requires preparation. So I'm saying purpose doesn't just need passion. It requires preparation. For those who don't know me, I am Dr. Marcia Thomas, and I am a motivational speaker, international motivational speaker. I am an author, 6 times best-selling author, and I'm also a Christian leadership consultant and a life purpose and career coach. I help individuals as an adjunct professor to successfully complete their dissertation for their master's and their PhD program. And so that's the sum total of who I am, mother and a wife also, for those who don't know me. I also have a Free to Flourish program. It's a 3-month program that I offer to persons also female leaders specifically, who are on the path to find their God-given calling and turn it into their God-given purpose and turn it into their profitable calling. And so that is where I rest the fulcrum of my ministry at this time. I press into my purpose in that way. Thank you for joining. Ronnie, it's been so long. And for those who don't know, Ronnie has a new book out that you must get. It's a perfect devotional. And so you must aspire to get that book, and you must make sure you get it. It is on Amazon and it's doing very, very well. All right. So today we want to look at the soul reset, building a leadership toolkit that heals, holds, and helps, as I said before. And many of us lead from a place of soul fatigue. Still moving, still achieving, but internally empty. And so today, I want to unpack the invisible ways that I have looked at in the first 2 series. And if you have missed those series, you maybe want to look at them. They are on YouTube. You can always go in and you can always look at it. And so we're going to talk about today discovering how to move from depletion to divine equipping. So you can pour from an empty cup, especially when the world keeps asking for refills. So you can be successful, you can be high functioning, but you can still be pouring from an empty cup, especially when you you have to be constantly refilling. You're called by your environment, by your roles, your responsibilities, your circumstances as a wife, as a sibling, as a mother, as a friend, as a leader in your industry, and even as just existing with expectations, as we say before. You are dealing with your grief, your loss, your pain, your betrayal, all of those things you are leading with. And here you are expected to actually lead as if you're whole. And so, as I talk about that today, I want to look at why we lead on empty. Why do so many persons lead on empty? And do you know, in fact, that you're leading on empty? And I gave several examples in my previous presentations, because this is the final of a 3-part series that talks about the invisible weights that leaders carry that prevent them from leading with impact and influence. And so we want to understand that many leaders perform well publicly while battling silently. So I call it that external glow that does not match the inside, because you're expected to show up, you're expected to perform, and we do it from different places, as I have looked at in my presentation session last week. We do it from different places, and we do it because we have different reasons and different expectations and standards that we set from by ourselves, because we made people speak over us. We have this lack that and this gap that we want to fill, and so on and so on. Good morning, Lisa. A lot of my favorite people are here this morning. Oh my, thank you. All right. And so there is also the emotional and spiritual fatigue that is often hidden under excellence. And that's why we show up. That's why we keep going. That's why when the world keeps asking for a refill, we keep putting it out there. And we're going to dig into that just a little. I want to say that we lead on empty because burnout does not begin with doing too much. It begins with doing what you are doing without alignment. So it's doing too much without alignment. And that is something I want us to talk about. So I want us to ask ourselves, where are you leading well externally, but leaking internally? Go back and take a look at that. Where are you leading well externally, but leaking internally? Sit down and take the time and look at your fulfillment matrix, because sometimes we are very unfulfilled, and we are not sure how to pin it down. So you want to take that break and you want to look, because as I say, you can be fulfilling your role perfectly, but you are far away, disconnected from your purpose. Hi, Karen, Pascal again. I say a lot of my favorite people are on this morning. Thank you so much for showing up and for supporting. Of course, remember to put your points in the chat, so I can share with you, you can share with me, we can build together, we can impact together, we can inspire together, and we can grow and overcome together. Thank you. So let's look at some signs of misalignment, if that it is there. Let's look at some signs of misalignment, the points where we are leading well externally, but leaking inside. Let's look. So do you find yourself snapping at team members? And could that reason be that it's not because you stop loving the work or what you're doing, but because you stop loving yourself in the process? You have lost yourself. You have exchanged self for title, for status, for achievements, for accolades. You have exchanged self. So you keep going, but you find that you have become a snapper. If you are a constant snapper, you need to take a hard look at yourself if you can find yourself. Because who you have become might now become a stranger to you, but you have not taken the time to stop and look at yourself because you have been too busy chasing external validation, chasing the accolades, the achievement, competing and staying ahead of the game, manipulating the outcomes, that you have lost yourself and you are losing the persons who mean the most to you, but you don't realize it because you're missing the important sessions with them, the quality sessions. You are putting them in second or third place, and you're putting your roles, your responsibilities, your organization, your life right there on a whole, where you are validated in your mind, but you are just a commodity to persons. Because the moment you stop or can no longer deliver, then you are no longer popular. And what you have done does not mean much to persons who are in the game of moving along. Been there, done that, moving along. We have to find someone else that can do the job. Sounds very callous and cold, but that's the world that we're living in right now in the organizations that should know better, private and public, and also for leaders in the church. So I want us to look at it. If you find yourself snapping, it's not because you stop loving the work. Sometimes it's just because you stop loving yourself in the process. You don't know yourself, and you're now all about achieving, all about performance and applause, and not about people and purpose. All right. So we want to look at another sign or another reason why we have those things. So let's look at the next thing. I want to make sure that I take the time, because I've been asked by persons who follow me and who say they benefit greatly, to dig in. So can you relate? Monique, a 46-year-old department head, is known for her flawless reports, punctual emails, and solution-oriented mindset. She's the go-to for every crisis and never misses a deadline. And I wrote this, and of course the name has been changed. But when I was a leader in my organization for 20 years, I even got to the point where I was a runner-up, principal of the year, runner-up. I did so well. Oh Lord, I was all things for all men. I was the go-to, I agree with her. She is similar to me for every crisis. I didn't miss a deadline. I put my reports out there. I sustained. I was very innovative. I was very creative. I solved every problem that could be solved in magnificent ways. Let's look. What's hidden? And I am pushing it out there for persons to look at it, simply because at the point of understanding where that fell, I created a healthy relationship seminar that was viewed on Pace TV by virtue of what it delivered in a public setting. And I merged all my stakeholders together into what is called a healthy relationship seminar, formal structure, where persons were able to share through activity, through the expert delivery, but in a setting, a comfortable setting, where they were able to build their marriages back, their work, team engagement, team spirit. So I pulled people together in the different settings based on the need at the time. And I took them into a public sphere where they were also able to wine and dine each other in that relaxed setting that was very formal. And many persons benefited because there was this sponsor who felt that it was of such high quality that they were to place it on Pace TV. And I got also reviews in the Jamaica Observer and also in the Gleaner. But I look at the issue here, and as we pull things out, I want us to think about why. Why do we push as leaders, female leaders, to meet these deadlines, to go to everybody, to be there for all men and so on, except ourselves? Is there the constant fear of being seen as incompetent or replaceable? Is there an insatiable desire in us as female leaders to be indispensable? Is it that we are pulling from emotional exhaustion, not feeling enough even when we are being praised? We feel that the praise ignites us to do more. So we have this hunger and thirst for praise and for affirmation. Is it that you equate performance with worth? Have we been led or fed too long to equate performance with worth? So we don't feel safe to rest or express emotional needs because we might be judged. This fear of judgment, we might be seen to be too vulnerable. Fear of criticism. Or has success distorted our image in such a way that we become so engaged in remaining at this level that we can't pause? That is the point at which we lose ourselves, and we don't want to lose ourselves. So I ask again, as we look at this, look at it, start journaling, start pausing and reflecting, because when achieving or performance or applause becomes a heavy burden that you're carrying, then it means that your soul needs healing, your soul needs release, and your soul needs retrieval. And I want to put it out there like that. Whatever you are doing as a female leader, whether in your home or in your church community, in your public sphere of your organization or your workplace, then if what you're doing is feeling more and more like a heavy burden, something that is weighing you down, that invisible weight means that your soul needs healing, your soul needs release, and your soul needs to be retrieved because you have exchanged yourself. You are no longer who you were fearfully and wonderfully created to be. You are not solving the problem you were creating to solve. You have derailed and put in dormancy why you exist, and you need to get back in alignment. And of course, I'm saying do your journaling or your internal reflection to find what and where you're operating from externally, looking well, but where the leak is on the inside. All right, so I am with you, Karen. When leadership feels like a constant uphill battle instead of a fulfilling expression of purpose, there may be a disconnect between what you're projecting and what truly fuels you. Powerful, powerful quote. Perfect agreement. And I want to keep it there just a little because that's very important. I know I'm digging in deep, and so persons are out there, and I hope this is driving home the point I want it to drive home. But there is the other side of it that a lot of us ignore, which I feel is also an invisible weight. Your days are manageable. Your calendar isn't full. You are not drained. You are not, you feel drained, sorry. Your days are very manageable. You don't have a lot doing. There is no pressure on you to perform. You are right where you want to be in your mind. Your job is easy, and you are comfortably working at your own pace, meeting the deadlines and so on, but you still feel drained and you still feel unmotivated and you still feel disconnected. You're not overloaded, but you feel fatigued and you feel unfulfilled. Why is that? Simply because you're misaligned and disconnected from your purpose. Simply because you're misaligned and disconnected from your purpose. Misaligned and disconnected from your purpose. I'm stressing it because that's where the soul healing has to come in. You see, burnout can be purpose starvation and not just overwork. Hi, Dana. Thanks for joining. I keep saying my favorite people are on this morning. Thank you so much for taking the time. Burnout can be a purpose starvation and not just overwork. So when your soul isn't engaged, even when doing your simple routines and those routines feel heavy, then it means that you are leaking internally somewhere. Misalignment is lack of alignment with who you are, why you were created, and how you must show up with that mission assignment, divine mission or assignment that you have been given. Of course, when you get to that place where there is purpose starvation, your soul needs healing, your soul needs release, and your soul needs retrieval. When those things are packed, it means that your mind, your body, your spirit are partnering and are working together as a whole. That makes you show up as a whole person, fulfilling your God-given purpose. And that is so important that you understand that. I have gone into a little detail in my Spirit, My Faith Looks Up, which is a new book that is now being reviewed in the publishing department to come out. Your faith is actually looking up. You are now getting into harmony and agreement with the divine as you pull yourself together and you sit down and do what you need to do. As I said last week, as we look at the invisible weights, we looked physically at grief and how grief puts us in misalignment and our invisible weights that leaders are carrying. We looked at grief as loss of loved ones, of relationships, and of jobs. We got into detail of persons who are grieving because of a divorce, because of a sudden and unexplained fatal illness, accidents that take persons from us. We looked at grief as that. We looked at trauma, the trauma that some persons go through when they are the ones that are the experts, they are the ones who can do the job, but they keep being overlooked for a promotion. We looked at persons going through trauma where they are in an abusive relationship, but they are carrying that burden silently. We look at persons who are experiencing trauma, female leaders, because they are not able to have a child. We look at those who have had miscarriages and have to be battling that. We look at persons who are experiencing this trauma because they are ill on the job. They have issues like lupus and cancer that can become traumatic because of the effect. We look at the trauma of betrayal. We looked at several things: grief and loss and pain, those invisible weights that you carry. And we looked at examples of persons who are carrying the burden as female leaders, as the only child, and who has aged parents taken care of. We looked at unforgiveness. We looked at so many things. And we are now coming into the toolkit. So this is the third session. For those who have missed it, you can go back and look at the first two slides on presentations on YouTube. All right. I see Ronnie here. Thank you. And Ronnie is my erudite colleague who has experience with trauma, unprocessed grief, very much so depression, and has written a book. Her first book is also on Amazon, and it's an excellent book. And she has another devotional that you need to pick up also. And she's saying unprocessed grief, depression, and other unattended to mental health deeply impacts our ability to serve well. And one of the invisible weights we carry, Ronnie, that I also highlighted was the high functioning depression that many person place, depressive place that many persons function from. I dug into that, and you can see that also in one of our YouTube presentation. Mental wellness and emotional well-being supports our soul's ability to function well. And Karen said that 2 weeks ago in detail. And she has a book, Karen Pascal and her sister, that has a book that talks about self-care and looked at all the aspects of self-care. She looks at how your gut health also deals with and contributes to these invisible weights. And so you need to make sure you get those two books from Karen and Joan. All right. Unforgiveness is also a silent internal distraction. And I agree with you, Ronnie, to our souls. More than anything, more than anything. All right. So we want to go back now to our presentation. So we want to put it back there so you can see. All right. So we want to, for those who are there. So we want to go now to create a toolkit. We want to create that leaders toolkit. Want to create that leaders toolkit so that we can move from broken to wholeness. We can move from empty to being equipped. All right. So we are going right back there. So here we are at our next slide, and we talk about burnout not being a place of starvation, but also of overwork, sorry, but also a place of purpose starvation. All right. So we are now going into what we should have in our toolkit. And so I'm looking at a leadership toolkit. The item number one is a sacred place. So you take that sacred stop. What do I call a sacred stop? I want to say that you carve out a sacred hour weekly where you disconnect from your leadership roles and reconnect with your identity in God, not your title. So purpose comes and is eliminated by resting in God's presence. And some of us, the first thing we do when we get up, which we dealt with last week, where you need to create your digital boundary, is that you look at your notification or your to-do kit on your notes, and you start with that. But you must start with yourself. Carve out a sacred hour weekly, and I'm repeating that. And I call that the sacred stop, where you disconnect from leadership roles and reconnect with your identity in God, not your title. The truth of the matter is, if God, you did not buy your eyes, your hands, your feet, or anything, and you have to nurture and maintain through self-care. But soul care is what nourishes those hands, feet, and arms. If God decides to just at sometimes rest those arms, you can't move them, you are not able to function, then your notifications mean nothing. And here I am speaking because it's very important that you understand that rest is not a reward. It's not a reward, it's a requirement. And so when you work and you physically put a strain on your mind and your body, and your eyes and your feet, they have to rest. And sometimes they call out to you and force you to carve out this weekly place because your back is against a wall. When you get a stroke or when you become so defeated with chronic fatigue, the aches and pains force you to stay put. That is when you look up. And the problem with us is that the problem is when we begin to look around instead of looking up. So you want to build intentional pauses, hi Mary, into your leadership rhythm. And you want to have those sabbatical moments that protect sustainability, your sustainability. So I want you to understand, and God says it too, that you are to be still and know that I am God. I am the one who is giving you the ability to do what you're doing. I am the one who established the purpose in you. Psalm 46 verse 10 is the text I just used. I am the one in which you move and have your being. And the moment you forget that, you come out of alignment. Your soul becomes clogged. Your soul becomes imprisoned, and it needs to be retrieved, because your soul is who you really are. The sum total of you are your innermost being, your spirit, your mind, all of that must work in unison for you to carry out your purpose. And so when you don't pause, when you don't reset, you find yourself in trouble. So you must build those intentional pauses into your life, into your leadership, into your roles, into your responsibilities. So I want to ask you a question. What would your leadership look like if you led from rest and not rush? What would your leadership looks like if you led from rest and not rush? If you pace yourself, and if you're able to move into what you need to move into. We want to be sure and clear about that. Then the next item on your leadership toolkit must be your soul audits. What does it mean? Soul audits. I want us to think about it and see what it means. What does your soul audit? What do you think it means? What do you think it looks like? A soul audit. That is, I call them your monthly soul scans. You know, sometimes when you go to the doctor, they do a CAT scan. They want to see what is really happening on the inside, so they can know how to treat you, what is causing the pain, what is causing that change, and so on. Or they do what is called an ultrasound or an MRI. That is what I'm asking you to do. All right, so we want to look at that part of it. And so you want to unexamined fatigue, let me say it like that, leads into unseen fractures, the unprocessed grief, the depression, and so on that you're talking about, Ronnie. When we don't process our grief and our fatigue, because sometimes we are very tired, but we are not tired physically. We are tired spiritually, mentally. We are tired financially. We are tired emotionally. So this unexamined fatigue can come off as pain that no doctor can actually pick up or understand. And so you want to be able to examine. So you want to do your periodical check-in on your heart and your habits and your values and your motivation. So you want to ask yourself, am I aligned or am I just performing? We want to do that. So I encourage persons to take those little retreats and ask these simple questions, sitting in your office or sitting in your, when you're taking a shower and some of us reminisce in our showers and so on. What am I avoiding? What is draining me, and where is God nudging me to realign? What am I avoiding? What is draining me, and where is God nudging me to realign? And that will start your soul audits. If you need more information about how to conduct your soul audit, I'll be able to share with you. So you just send me a DM and you say soul audit, and I'll get back to you with a document, that checklist that can assist you, a scan. All right, the next one, leadership tool that I want you to have in your toolkit is your purpose anchor. You want to create a purpose anchor that is always visible. Example, my purpose anchor is I lead to restore hope, stir identity, and build people, not platforms. That's my purpose anchor. I lead to restore hope, stir identity and purpose, and build people. My mantra is to allow people to become masters of their own destiny and to identify their own purpose And so I say to you, anchor yourself in your why and not your what. Anchor yourself in your why and not your what. Wherever you are, anchor yourself in your why. What is your why? So that things don't affect you the way they do. And many persons don't understand me, how I function. Leadership is not a popular thing when you're doing what is right, because everybody wants to be served and everybody wants their agenda to be fulfilled, and you're just one person. You have to be focused and intentional. You have to know yourself and your purpose, and that can cause persons to be stirred in the wrong way, and persons who think alike and who are common can rise up. And you must also stand. You are not to be defeated when you're doing the right thing, because God always allows that to be the anchor, your anchor, and He rewards you for what you are doing, the work that you're doing. He establishes you and He puts you on a sure footing. Sometimes He has to move you from where you are so that you can serve those who are not accepting. So He takes you from a distance, but you still serve them. So you might find that there are persons who are out there who are not serving in a particular space, but you are putting your space to fulfill a duty to those persons. So you're able to change their outcomes and their lives, even though they don't realize it. And Joseph was taken through a marathon of distress, delays, pain, and so on, and carried an invisible weight, but he carried a visible purpose, and he became very visible. Very visible from the start, where his brothers tried to kill him. Very visible when he was betrayed and lied on by Potiphar's wife, and then was it Potiphar's? Yes, and put in prison for no apparent reason. Four persons who would look at it as being unfair and unjust, but he was given an established mandate, took him right to where he was to be, to deliver his family and Egypt from famine. So sometimes that invisible part is very uncertain. We are not able to see. We go through a suffering period, which I call a test in another document I've written. And we don't understand it. And persons don't understand it. They become naysayers, they become discouragers. And these people walk away from you and want to retrieve the relationship they once had with you in an effort because they no understand. Because they no understand. So they abandoned you at the time because that visible weight appeared to be too heavy for them to share with you. And then they tried to pull back into the space when what was in the making now becomes established. I see you there, Zara. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you, and you're saying like how water has three forms. When solid, ice; in liquid form, it's water. When you heat it, it operates, so it becomes vapor. Are we seeking for happiness, or are we seeking contentment, satisfaction, calmness? Have you noticed happiness also has three forms? Pleasure, which is shortest in time, means happiness when till it peaks and then it falls off. This is what is pleasure. We should be thanking God and stay satisfied with all that we have. And that is contentment, yes. And the Bible talks about it. Contentment being a great gain. And that's very powerful too. All right. So we want to, and we have Karen also. Thank you again, saying before embarking on any big life decision or change, core values must be clarified. And I can't say that enough. It's important to clarify your core values in order to ensure that any change of decision made is in alignment with your core values to maximize your success, because your core values can put you in trouble. Your core values can really put you in trouble, Karen, and I know that from experience because I feel, and I have as my mantra, and I had it in my book, A Leader Like You. The greatest want of men are men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who are sure to duty as a needle to the pole, who in their innermost souls are true and honest, stand for truth though the heavens fall. That is my mantra, and I live by that. Not always favorable to all, in all settings and circumstances, to all people, but that's the mantra, that's the life, that's the core value that I have taken up, and that has given me my fair share of resistance and opposition. But I At the end of it, you must be satisfied. You must be satisfied, because success in itself is that you have fought a good fight and you have finished your course. Whatever was set out for you by the divine maker, you have fulfilled that purpose. That is what is important, because purpose is eternal. And when you are established and your foot is set in your purpose, you do not necessarily get approval. And that is highlighted in the life of Christ. He came to die so for us to have what is an eternal destiny, gone to prepare a place for us. When he comes again, he shall receive us. And each of us, before we were born, God says he knew us and he established what would be our life path. Sometimes we deviate because our soul is not in alignment, our mind is not stayed on him, and our spirit is competing with external validation, competing with affirmation, competing with praise and accolades and performance and applause, instead of competing with calling, with changing lives, with empowering and impacting and in growing people. We become distorted, and that is why you must have your purpose anchor and you must keep it visible. Thank you so much, Karen, for raising those points. Thank you, Dr. Marcia, for this soul releasing, healing, releasing, and retrieval. That reminded me of something. Could you share it here? Yes, 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 Zara, I see you. And so we are pulling on. And so you want to, as you look at, as I go back to the purpose anchor, we want to, as I said, anchor ourselves in our why. You know why? Titles can shift and persons' affection can change. But purpose is, as I said, is eternal. I want you to ask yourself this question. Thank you so much for joining, Simone. I see you there. You see me looking from device to device. It's because other persons are joining and I don't want to miss them. I want you to ask yourself, what's one truth about your purpose that doesn't change with your circumstances? Which value is constant for you? It doesn't change with your circumstances. I want you to ask yourself, what value or part of your purpose, what is it about your purpose, that truth about your purpose that does not change? Because as I said in previous sessions and series, what you love and what you're good at are two different things. But when you merge them together, they pull you into understanding your purpose. And I take people through that journey when they join my program. I take them into all of that and I link it with your spiritual gifts. And as you move into it, a lot of persons are so surprised. I have had clients coming to my business that I still have a relationship with that's just expanding, because as they pull into their gifts and see the connection, the constant theme, and the seasons that they find themselves in that requires these core traits and values and these unique gifts and talents, they know are set into what they are called to do. I have had persons open schools and open businesses that have changed life for persons and changed outcomes, not only their own, but they are drafting other people. I have persons who have started what they need to get started and have graduated and gotten the attention, national attention and accreditation. I have had persons who have no understand that they are to be resting in a particular calling and it is taking them places. Even today, they have a presentation. When they came, they were very excellent in what they were doing, in their roles and their responsibilities. They were achieving, they were out there with their achievements, and these persons just felt a type of emptiness, felt that my posts and my sessions are appealing to them, did a little call, got into understanding things a little more, and thank God they felt that it's important for them to pursue the plan that I have and are placing in front of them, and they are succeeding, and I'm happy that I'm able to serve in that way. It took me a while to pull myself out there and to take that big leap, but God nudged me out of my space by several different circumstances that I've highlighted, and we are moving on. The next one that you want to do is you want to have your toolkit of wise counselors. It tongue-tied there a while ago. So you want to create your toolkit of wise counselors. You know, none of us live in a vacuum. And I want to say that leadership in isolation is dangerous. And you see, leadership loneliness is real. A lot of leaders experience a type of loneliness that people don't talk about. And of course, I say, when I talk about these things, I talk about the unconventional things that person tend to shy over in leadership. And so I want to say that there is a leadership loneliness that is real when you're at the top, when your decisions are crucial to change lives and to change outcomes, when you have the pressure of persons wanting you to do what is popular instead of what is right, when you have that type of authority that you can misuse because of how you are seen by persons, your charisma, and so on. It becomes a lonely place when you seek to do what God has called you to do and to stand by what is right and true and honest. And when you try to make sure that what you want for yourself is what you give to people, that can become a lonely place. And you'll be shocked and surprised the persons who push you to do what does not serve the whole and serves only or fits into their agenda. Good morning, Curtis. Thank you so much. And so it can become a lonely place, and persons can be wolves in sheep clothing. But safe counsel keeps your purpose accountable and your pace sustainable. And the Bible says that because plans fail because of a lack of counsel. But with many advisors, they succeed. And I'm saying with the right one, they succeed. And so you want to build a purpose board of advisors. Who are these persons that you need to put on your board? Those who always show up at your worst to encourage you, to pull you along, to give you sound, objective, and nurturing advice. Spiritual mentors who are able to pray with you and able to pull you back into God's plan, because sometimes as humans we deviate, we get angry, we get disappointed, we get disconnected, and we bend under the invisible weight, and we on the unforgiveness, the bitterness, the anger that some of these roles and responsibility pulls into us require our soul to heal and for it to be released, and for you to retrieve that part of you that God has set in you to carry out that particular mission or role that you are given or assignment, divine I'm talking about, that belongs to you, and that you may have placed in dormancy or deviated from because of the expectations and who the calls, the many voices and calls that you answered instead of answering your calling. And that's what I'm saying. So last week we looked at you carrying things that were never intended for you to carry. And we gave several examples. As I say, go back to that session. And so we have now leadership coaches, and we have peer leaders, and we have intercessors. Those are the persons that you must have on your purpose board of advisors. And as you know, as I say, I speak to Christian leaders, school leaders, corporate leaders, industries, and so on. And I train leaders from a Christian perspective. And so that is why on this toolkit with your wise counselors, you must have these people: the spiritual mentors, your leadership coach, your peer leader, and your intercessor. And those are persons who give you wise counsel and put you on. The question I want you to ask yourself now: who holds that space for your leadership, your soul, and not just your goals? Who holds the space for your leadership goals? Who hold that space? Because you have a leadership soul. What is occupying the space of your leadership soul? Is it grief? Is it loss? Is it applause? Is it performance? Is it imposter syndrome? Whatever is holding that space, you need a healing, you need a release, and you can get it by putting these things into your toolkit. So let's look now at we want to look at 3 steps to strive. You want to reset, reflect deeply. You want to look what's draining you. You want to look at what is fueling you. You want to ask, where am I off course? from my God-given calling, you want to refuel, meaning you want to rebuild your inner strength through your soul care practices and the tools that I have just given you in your toolkit. Thank you so much, Ronnie. Love this point. Choosing people wisely is critical. And I said it too, that desperation can lead to choosing people that aren't aligned with your vision. And so a lot of persons mistake desperation for trust. They exchange desperation, trust for desperation. And that's a point I want to place on my screen here. Yes, those wrong people can set you back. And I'm changing it to can, from can. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I'm taking out the can. Those wrong people set you back. They put your purpose in dormancy or they derail it. They do set you back. So we can remove the can and say those wrong people set you back. Very, very excellent point. Very excellent point. A lot of us exchange desperate trust for desperation. And when I say exchange trust for desperation, instead of trusting in God, we begin to trust in ourselves and in man because we are desperate and we begin to get so fearful that we make choices from an emotional place instead of a divine waiting place. And I said last week, I think, or the week before, that period between hope and waiting, that period between the hope and the promise, that waiting period shakes the foundation of strong men and make them deviate from their purpose. Because that period of that dry season, that wilderness season, that suffering season is not seen as a test. It is seen as punishment. And for the Christian leader, for the Christian career professional, so your suffering, your waiting season, your dry season is a test. A test because God has to be able to trust you before he gives you that assignment and that package, that sacred package that he's giving you to deliver. And that is why I say purpose and leadership are sacred and they are not separated. They are partners because when you know your purpose, you can't help but begin to lead. Lead in the sense that you serve because leadership, true leadership is service. And service is what everybody does with what they have been given as unique gifts and talents. We call that your calling or your purpose. And once you're operating from your unique gift and talents and you find yourself serving unconditionally. So even your role and responsibilities, you always find that you have to be using these unique gifts and it's not on your job description. And no, in your community, in your home, in your job, you are using these gifts. And these gifts are inspiring people, impacting people, growing people. Then you need to focus on your purpose because that's where your purpose lies. What you do very well and what you love to do. It lies on your purpose. Sometimes what we love to do is not what we do well. Focus on what we are doing well, what we do naturally, what is pulled out of us, what shines out of us, what is delivered and delivered and delivered. In every situation, this is what you're called on to deliver. Focus right there and pull yourself up and understand it. And do not exchange it for performance and for applause and for what you think would be wealth or gain, because your purpose brings profits. God expects us to use our gifts and our talents to serve others and to profit ourselves, meaning to pay our bills. And he does it and he has said it. So it's not a myth from where we are standing. All right. So thank you for making that point, Ronnie. Powerful point that I like. And so the key takeaways I want you to take as I wind down, and thank you so much for staying, is your soul fatigue is real and it is often silent. And that's why I say we need to have our soul scan and we need to actually have our sacred stop where we begin to evaluate and look at our soul. We want to, even high achieving purpose-driven leaders can lead on empty if you're out of alignment, if you see success as applause and as achievements and accolades and not significance, then you can be achieving and you can be very good at your role, but you are outside of your purpose. And so you're leading from empty. Emotional, mental, and spiritual depletion shows up in subtle ways. And that is snapping at people. It can be that you avoid going to work at a certain time. You're not showing up at your A game because, and you're not feeling fulfilled. There's still something in you that is empty. And I gave that example. We also have learned that we can't we can't pour from an empty soul. And so if your soul needs healing, if it needs release, if it needs retrieval from the invisible weights that you carry of grief, unforgiveness, of betrayal, of pain, of sickness, and so on, you need to get into that place. Because if it's not, it's going to keep you stuck and stagnant. Burnout recovery and purpose realignment require more than your time off. Not just taking time off, it's not just going to the beach, it's not just resting. It is doing your soul scan, it's digging deep into yourself, it's realigning your core values, it's knowing what you stand for so you don't fall for anything. And I say every time that if you have to constantly tell people what you stand for, you're not standing. Whenever you're standing, they will see you, man. And some of us mistake that where we're telling that this is what I believe and this is what I am about and this is, but you're not. If you have to constantly tell people, you're not standing. And so as we do our audits, because we must do our purpose audit, it helps us, as you're saying, Karen, to declutter our lives. Yes, it helps us to clean up our physical, mental, emotional environment. And this we need to do very often. You are so right. And we also want to take away that you need a leadership sustainable toolkit that includes boundaries. And I say no is important. We have what is called that sacred no. And that sacred no is when you say no to what you really can't do, or when you say no to someone who requires you to do for them what they can do for themselves. So there is a no that cuts off enabling, because so many of us are enablers, especially to our children or to persons in our organizations that we feel are doing well and who we don't want to lose. We don't say no to them. And so we become enablers, destiny snatchers, because we do not allow them to become masters of their own destiny because we don't say no. And so we're talking about that sacred no, that is the boundary that protects your peace and also protects the purpose that is in the next person. Because when you say no, you say no. There was a gentleman who gave an individual notice and gave him a particular period after he lived at his place for a long time to find a place. So he said to him, all right, I'm giving you 6 months. The man was so angry and he went around to people. But in the 6 months, he couldn't get anywhere to rent. So he decided to use what is called his housing benefits. And he located a place and he began to build. And every time he passed that man's house, he began to say, he kept telling people, and this is a Christian gentleman in a Christian environment, kept telling people how wicked and cruel the man was, because at the time his wife was also pregnant. And he finally got to me and I said to him, what is the benefit that you got from that man's choice or decision at that time? He says, I'm in my house and I'm going on the second floor. I said, have you ever focused on that point of it? You're a Christian. Have you ever looked at that point of it, that you were nudged out of your comfort zone so you could fulfill this part of your life? Because you maybe would have still been stuck. He never repeated it to someone else again. And that part of me tends to needle people. So it either creates a positive response or a negative response, because he could have moved from that spot and felt that I was in agreement with this gentleman, so I was cruel and wicked. But I made him look at the why of it. What is the result, the positive result that you get? And so I shut down that spirit of accusation that he was carrying, because that's not what he should be focusing on. He should be focusing on the gratitude and the outcome of what it should be. And so that no is very important. Then we want to look at also the daily soul nourishment. The daily soul nourishment rhythms that you must create. And one of those include not looking at your notifications as the first thing. Looking at your soul, looking up, appreciating that God made you wake up in the morning instead of the first thing fighting to go and hustle or get the grind going. Look at who is giving you the strength and ask him, what is it that he wants you to do today as you move into your path? What is it that you're to accomplish? Because you want to also look at What is it you want to accomplish today? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be your outcome? Because the moment you put that in, you go out with that nourished mind. And then you want to do your strategic rest, which be that some persons rest on a Sunday, they go to church, some on a Sabbath. And then the silence that you must use for self-awareness and for self-appreciation and for self-love. And that stillness or pause that you must take when you don't understand or when you feel drained or overwhelmed. All of those are different pauses. And of course, I say we can talk about it if you want to learn more. And then there's the mentorship, the coaching, and the accountability that we must engage in when there is the need. And sometimes I find that people are saying, I'm well said, that somebody came to my soul strategy sync session the other day and she said, I just come because I just like this post that you made, but I am well set. And by the time we did the purpose alignment checklist, and she found that she was a faithful, oh Lord, she was a faithless, I'm sorry, faithful pessimist. She thought she had it all together. Now we're in a process where we're looking at her plan, her individualized plan. And I smile because I remember when I was there. And so it's so hard sometimes to pick up that soul fatigue, the point where you need that soul healing or soul release or soul retrieval that we call purpose, where you are in tune, your body, your mind, and your spirit are all in one place. And you understand and have the clarity and the confidence to move into your established divine life script using your spiritual gifts. It's very important because it's natural. There is no person that has not done that spiritual gift test that has not said, ah, and everyone who pointed to most of the things that fall into line with those gifts in they were not embedded in the role or the responsibilities that they were carrying. And some persons don't want to transition. They want to be able to use their gifts where they are resting because they love what they do. Nothing's wrong with that. Some persons turn it into, it's a light bulb moment that pushes them into their brilliant business idea or the space that they want to occupy or the promotion that they want to get. And they now position themselves comfortably and they understand the process of pausing, of waiting, of God's timing, and of God's direction and instruction. So they no longer lean on their own understanding, but they trust the understanding of God. And they are given the skills to know when it is wait, when it is yes, and when it is no. So if this conversation resonates with you, then I want you to take the next step and book a Soul Sync strategy session with me, where we can work together now to realign your leadership, your calling, and your soul health for sustainable impact in 2025 and beyond. But if you are not ready and you're still looking and you're going to be listening to the sessions as we move along, then you want to do your purpose alignment audit. So you want to DM me or you want to book a call. So the link for the purpose alignment audit is right there. You're still going to need to DM me to talk about your results because when you do it, we talk about the results to see where you fall because there are 4 categories that you fall in. And then we can take it from there. We can have just a session and there we can have you for a month depending on where you are resting, or you can do my 3 months program. Again, I want to say thank you for your contributions and for listening, and may your Tuesday be peaceful, intentional, and purpose-filled as you decide and as you pull forward to lead with light. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Ronnie, Curtis, Zara. Thank you, Marjana. And thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Dan. And thank you so much for joining, Franklin and Simone, and all of those who joined me on YouTube. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great day and see you next week when we start another series on another topic that is important for life and leadership. Have a great day.